Listen, ladies and gentlemen, I understand with all of the information that's being put out right now on a daily basis, on an hourly basis, even by the minute, most people, and I would say probably all people, do not have the ability to keep up with everything that's going on. So this is me trying to do my small part in showing you what may be going on behind the scenes that you may not know about. And I also enjoy doing what I'm doing right now. Today I'm going to go over a newsletter that's put out by one of my favorite YouTubers, to tell you the truth. And no, I'm not fluffing him up or anything like that, but I've been subscribed to Mr. Manarino's channel, Gregory Manarino, for a really long time, for good reason, because he puts out really good information. And not only that, he's very passionate about what he does. Right? He's a patriot that loves this country, and he puts out information that he tries to use in order for people to succeed. And the information that he's put out in his latest newsletter is very pertinent for you to understand, because people are walking around nowadays having no idea what's going on. I'm telling you, go shopping, go to a supermarket, go to a mall, if there's even people in a mall nowadays, and watch them. They have no idea what's going on behind the scenes, ladies and gentlemen. Every once in a while, I spot someone that I'm like, that guy knows what's going on. I went to Costco not too long ago, and I saw a gentleman and his little, I would say she was probably about 3 or 4 year old daughter, and he was pushing one of those big orange carts. It had 50-pound bags of rice. It had 25-pound bags of beans. It had a case of oil. It had sugar in the 25-pound. It was loaded. I'm like, yep, that guy right there knows what's going on. The majority of the population has no idea what's going on. And what's going on right now in the banks in the United States of America is something that you really have to know about, ladies and gentlemen, because eventually, if you don't know what's going on, you're the one that's going to be left standing up without a chair to sit in, i.e., you're the one that's going to be left holding the bag because you didn't know what was going on. Let me stop talking. I'm going to cover two things today: Mr. Manarino's latest newsletter, and also a warning from Mr. Armstrong, all right, on a subject matter that I've been emailed several times here in the last couple of days. We're going to go over how coin shops and bullion dealers are going to be and have started to be debanked. But first, here it says runs on banks are going on right now, all right, but nobody knows. Why? Because, ladies and gentlemen, they have the ability to keep this quiet so that the majority of the population doesn't understand that they're going to be left holding the bag if they leave their money in the banks. Eventually this will happen. You've seen videos in the past. I put up a video where the FDIC pretty much said the American people don't understand, and we don't want them to understand, because if not, there would be a run on the banks. The American people don't understand that there is pretty much no liquidity in the banks, because we have so much debt in the system that there is absolutely no way that we can create all of that money, which is fiat currency, which is debt. See what I'm getting at? It's like a revolving door. It's like a snake eating its own tail. Most Americans don't understand. Here, Mr. Manarino says, there is a phenomenon going on right now which is getting almost no attention from the mainstream media, and they will not give it any attention. And he says for good reason. If people were made aware of what is happening right now, the entire financial system would collapse. And it would. It would, ladies and gentlemen, because there is nowhere near the amount of money in banks, and I'm calling it money even though it's fiat currency, that they say there is. Not even in digits. I'm not talking there is nowhere near the amount of physical cash, right? There's only about 1.6, maybe 2 trillion, let's call it $2 trillion in physical cash that exists in the entire world. Well, in the US alone, there's, I believe, about $18 trillion in deposits in banks. So even if everyone wanted to take out, let's say, 50% of the money that they have in the bank in the United States of America, there would not be enough physical cash to be able to accommodate that. But there's not enough money, i.e. even electronically, to accommodate you taking your money out. He continues to say, this really got started back in early 2022. Capital outflows from the major banks began to see a massive spike, and those capital outflows Who were taking their money out and shifting it over to, let's say, money markets, whatever it is that gives you a higher interest rate? The smart money. They're called the smart money. They're called the really rich people that know what's going on behind the scenes because they're privy to that information before we are, ladies and gentlemen. So as of May of this year, bank deposits were lower by $1 trillion than last year. People are also pulling their cash out of these institutions at a record pace. It is called unbanking, and most people are doing it. Ladies and gentlemen, I would say that most people are doing it for a couple of reasons. One, some of them can see what's coming, and two, some of them just have no choice. They have to take the money out because they need it in order to live. People disconnecting themselves from banks by only keeping minimal deposits in the system or putting their cash out altogether is catching on. We've talked about this for a long time. That is a serious problem for the banks. People have had enough, he says, and I have to agree. A quiet revolution against these institutions appear to have thankfully begun. I have a credit union account where I do my banking in a credit union, and I also have a banking account that I had when I was in the military, and I kept it. All right. Now, normally I do business with my credit union first and foremost in person. Now, I've been going to that credit union for a long time, and I've been taking the cash out for a long time. You know, sometimes I take out this much, sometimes I take out that much, etc., etc., etc. They've never had a problem with me taking cash out in any denominations or amounts, let's say. But the last time that I went out to take some cash, they were like, "You want what?" I'm like, "Yeah, this is how much I want." And they're like, "Well, okay, we can cover that." But this is the first time that I've ever seen them have just a little bit of a hesitation, right? Not saying that I have problems with them at all. They're a great credit union. I really enjoy going there. The people there are great. But it's the first time that I had someone be a little hesitant as to where they asked me like a second time, "How much do you want?" And it wasn't a lot of money, ladies and gentlemen. It was a couple $1,000. But I digress. I do recommend that you all go to Mr. Manarino's newsletter. I'll leave the link on this on a pinned comment, all right? Along with the link to the next article that I'm going to be reading for you all, very short as well. But I'll leave it on a pinned comment so that you can revisit it. But it doesn't cost you anything to hook up with Mr. Manarino's newsletter. I get it every single day in my email. And in all honesty, ladies and gentlemen, I understand some people, their emails get flooded and stuff. If you get a newsletter and you just don't feel like reading it that day, just delete it. It's no harm, no foul, right? But every once in a while, you get one that you're like, man, I have to. Me personally, I'm like, I have to share this with the public. Today, banks are seeing a virtual collapse of deposits along with cash withdrawal in record numbers. Not only are banks having to deal with a lack of deposits and capital outflows, but they are also seeing loan defaults rising across the board. On a greater scale, what this comes down to is a rapidly developing liquidity crisis. I've talked about this a lot in the past. We are going to have a liquidity crisis. Why? Because we are in a debt-based system where we have to increase our debt year over year over year. If not, the system collapses. Well, just imagine how many dollars there are out in outer space, right? In the interweb. Imagine how many digital dollars there are out there. How are we going to get them? All of those dollars equate to your labor. There are trillions, if not quadrillions of dollars out there, ladies and gentlemen. Go ahead and try to fit your head around that statement. There are quadrillions of dollars out there that are debt. How are we going to, as humanity, right? How are we going to earn those dollars to bring them into existence? Because what's out there is really debt. So let's say that I owe you $1,000, right? That $1,000 that I owe you, if I haven't worked that $1,000 into existence, I have to first work it into existence in order to pay it to you. But we have quadrillions of dollars out there that are debt. That the actual dollars, in order to pay them, have not been worked into existence. We are in a catch-22, and I hope that you're getting prepared. All right? People who are familiar with my work, says Mr. Manarino, are keenly aware that the financial system functions as a perpetual vacuum, a constant state of liquidity. Therefore, ever more liquidity must be constantly added to the system for it to function. Like I said, we have to get into debt more and more every year. You've never seen our national debt go down, ladies and gentlemen. This is the nature of the current debt system that we live in, which is run by the collective central banking system. These institutions are very aware of what is going on, and they will eventually be forced to take action. Now, what's one of the best ways to create liquidity, to create a reason why we need to create more liquidity? Well, let's go to war. Let's go to war. And the people will fall behind it. Yes, we need to print money out of thin air. Yes, we need to fund this war. Hey, let's go ahead and unleash a health crisis onto the world that will result in people being so frightened that they will not care if the government prints 40% of all the money that ever existed in the history of this country in just a span of 2 years, ladies and gentlemen. I.e., a false flag. That's what he means, I think, when he says they will eventually be forced to take action. And here he says that limiting withdrawal amounts and also stopping them altogether is a very big possibility. And what is that? Something I've talked to you about in the past as well. Capital controls. When you hear the word capital controls, get what you need and get it in a hurry, because they are going to get ready to tell you, hey, I don't care if you have $25,000 in the bank, you can take out $50 a day. That should be good enough for you to live on, $50 a day. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that's capital controls right there. And he finishes off by saying a quiet revolution has begun and people are unbanking themselves. And obviously it has, because people are. Let's just hope that we can keep this up. The years that are ahead are not going to be easy years. But ladies and gentlemen, if we're going to go through rough years anyways, we might as well go through those hard years for the right reasons. All right, ladies and gentlemen, with a situation such as this, it's always better to be the first to act, and that's up to you whether you want to act or not. Now listen to this. This here is the site for Armstrong Economics, and Mr. Armstrong is a financial guy that I've been following for years as well. I will leave the link to this so you can come and visit his page if you never have before. I've been getting emails about this pretty much since yesterday and on into this morning, and I actually went ahead and watched this video here. And if I leave this link, you'll be able to click on the video as well so that you can play it. I've already watched it, and it's pretty much a bullion dealer, a coin dealer. You know, just like Alaska Rare Coins, but there's a coin dealer in a different state that pretty much said, hey, my bank just closed all of my accounts for my business. They gave me, I think it was a 14-day notice. They didn't give me a reason why. They just don't want to do business with us. Ladies and gentlemen, eventually banks, i.e. the central bank, coming down from the central bank, is going to try to close all of these businesses that they consider loopholes for people to be able to freely trade with one another. And gold and silver is a way that we can freely trade with one another, value that is real value. Here Mr. Armstrong says, I reported previously that a dealer I knew suddenly had his credit line closed. I have warned that besides banks preparing for the coming CBDCs, closing local branches in the US and Britain, I seriously question if they will allow people to buy precious metals and use cryptocurrencies post CBDC, meaning after the CBDCs come to be. CBDCs are coming, ladies and gentlemen, and they're going to be great at first, and people are going to go ahead and say, yes, we don't need coin shops, we don't need cash, and you just wait until the governments get rid of cash and get rid of coin shops and get rid of alternate money that we, the people, can use freely to exchange value with one another. Once they do that, they're going to have us, and people will then realize how terrible a CBDC really is. This is about control, he says, and they want us to shut down what they view as the underground economy. What are people going to do that depend on using cash? There's still a lot of people that use cash in order to just eke out a living, ladies and gentlemen, but they want to tax every single cent that you have coming in. They want to directly tax you for every single thing that you've got coming in, ladies and gentlemen. That's just the way that it is. And they continue to say that the underground economy, the U.S. estimates to be about 20 to 35%. That's a whole big chunk of money that they can be digging their claws into, ladies and gentlemen. if they get rid of cash. This is about increasing their taxation to automatic theft. And that's exactly what it is. Taxation is nothing but theft. When's the last time that the taxes that got taken out of your pay were used for something that you agreed with? This is the net result of direct taxation, he says, which the founding fathers warned would happen. That is why they prohibited any form of direct taxation in the Constitution until, of course, one of our greatest presidents that ever existed, Mr. Woodrow Wilson, came in and said, "Hey, come on, guys. Bring in the Federal Reserve. Oh, you want to tax them also so that they can pay the interest on the money that you printed out of thin air that never existed before you said, go ahead and let it be," which is where fiat currency came from. The name fiat, let it be, just do it. Mr. Woodrow Wilson. But they make these presidents look like they were stars, like they were great. That is why they prohibited any form of direct taxation in the Constitution. The socialists, he says, seized power and pushed for the income tax in 1913. And they argued that they needed to raise tax rates with every war, but never return them to pre-war levels. And that's the truth. This has been a slow grinding process over more and more control. This leads to eventually owning nothing and being very miserable. Not happy, ladies and gentlemen. All right. I hope that you get something out of this. And for goodness gracious, I hope that you do a little bit of your own research. Listen, I'm not perfect, and I'm sure I screw up every once in a while. I may misstate something. I may have an opinion, right? Because I do have my opinions that maybe don't jive with yours. But the fact is this. The fact is that we are going to be headed towards times that are probably the roughest times that we have experienced in our lifetime. And in probably generations prior to ours. So you need to get prepared the best that you can. Not only with money, not only with finances, but make sure that you have your basic preps. Food, water, medicine, self-defense, a backup for energy, a few cans of gasoline, enough to at least fill one or two of your vehicle's tanks if it was empty. Just basic things, ladies and gentlemen. If you're an experienced prepper and you've been prepping for a long time and you have everything that you need in order to survive a crisis, let's say of 60 days, let's say a couple month crisis, right? You have all the food you need, everything you need, right? Then maybe you may want to take a look at, preserving some of your excess wealth instead of leaving it in the bank. And of course, I can only say that this is what I would do because I cannot recommend that to you, right? I'm not a financial advisor, so that's not advice. It's just talking to you, ladies and gentlemen, like if you were my brother or my sister. You may want to think about doing some stuff like that. Maybe getting a little bit of cash out of the bank. Maybe getting most of it and unbanking yourself like many people have. But these are decisions that you have to make for yourself and your families because it is you, not me, that will pay for the consequences of your decisions, be it good decisions or bad ones. So just think about that, ladies and gentlemen. Just don't just gaff this off like, some crazy guy on YouTube is saying, hey, you need to get prepared. It's not the end of the world. It's not the end of the world. But do you want to live the next several years, in destitute? Because these thieves that have been stealing our wealth for generations continue to do so while most people sleep. Well, it seems, according to Mr. Manarino at least, that a lot of people are waking up and are saying we've had enough. And I believe that we will win in the end. Good always wins over evil. I better stop talking. If not, this video is going to be like an hour long. And I know that you're not going to sit down for an hour just listening to me talk. Having said that, have a great day, ladies and gentlemen. I hope that you're getting prepared. God bless every one of you. God bless America. I'm Alaska Prepper. I'm out.